Okay, well, we have Ten of Swords, part 9 of 22. This is Excalibur, issue 13. And this is by Teenie Howard and R.B. Silva. And it is, uh, yeah, there's a lot going on here. So if you haven't been reading Excalibur and you dipped into this issue because you're interested in Ten of Swords, you are going to be confused as hell. But let's get into that. Hey everybody, this is Perch. Ten of Swords rolls on with Chapter 9, Excalibur, Issue 13. Teenie Howard, who's one of the co-architects of Ten of Swords, along with R.B. Silva, who's doing the art. I guess first things first. Art's pretty solid. It is. We've seen better out of R.B. Silva, but it is still quite nice. It's good stuff. I feel like R.B. Silva would really benefit from an inker. This is a case where I think the artist doing the penciling and inking in one is causing some roughness and some shortcuts that's being covered up by some of the coloring and other things. And I think there's a lot of screaming voice going on. That's a common occurrence in this comic. At any rate, our comic opens up with Saturnyne, and she is kind of in her palace here in the Starlight Citadel. She's there with Betsy Braddock, who is Captain Britain-ish, and they're welcoming Jamie and her brother Brian. And they come in and Betsy is just in a bad mood. So she's irritable. She doesn't want the sword. She doesn't want the sword. She says this multiple times. She's angry. Take the sword. This is a sword of might, and you take it. You keep it. You know, this is the sword. If you weren't reading Excalibur, basically how we got into this is that Captain Britain, in a moment of weakness/anger, grabbed the sword of might instead of the amulet. Which it caused some problems, and then Betsy grabbing the amulet became Captain Britain. Brian's been on the outs, so Brian's carrying around this sword, and it is named in the prophecy. Somebody has to wield it. So the prophecy they're referring to is the prophecy that Polaris basically transcribed from Saturnyne and this whole tournament that's coming up. Generally speaking, this comic has very little to do with the tournament. This is more along the lines of the storyline that's been going on in Excalibur and really the relationship between Betsy and Brian. So as they settle into the palace, they continue to argue about the sword. Saturnyne really wants Betsy to take the sword, and that she is a rogue Captain Britain. It's an abomination, must be destroyed. And she needs to return the amulet of right to her brother Brian. She doesn't want to do that. And so the two kind of, argue. They go out into the garden. They have a little fight, but Brian's refusing to pull the sword. She is just mad, like consistently mad. And there's a little bit of conversation around, you have no idea what this means to me. You are owed nothing. There's some privilege talk. I mean, it's very... she's out of character here, and Brian is I'm not sure. At any rate, this doesn't present Betsy in the kind of the clever good light, but she's been struggling with this whole Captain Britain business really since the comic began. So as they head off to some sleep, Jamie is interrupted by the alt universe versions of Gambit, Jubilee, Rogue, and Richter, who all picked up the amulet of right when Betsy was unconscious. This was back in a couple issues ago, like 3 issues ago. Anyway, so these are all alt universe, not the real Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, and Richter, but they're all Captain Britain-fied versions. And so they are kind of the new Captain Britain Corps, and they are going to kill Jamie. So there's some crashing and banging, and Betsy and Brian go running up, and she hands him the sword because she still won't use it. And there we see that Jamie is fighting off these other Captain Britain and doing a pretty good job with it. The crazy part is he's got them on the ropes. And so Jamie kills Alt Jubilee. He breaks her little Britain sunglasses. And then for some reason then they flee, even though Jamie was doing a perfectly fine job even before Brian and Betsy showed up. And now they've evened the odds, but they're running. And so as they run, Gambit throws a little energy burst. It hits the sword of might that Brian is carrying, but he refuses to unsheath. And he basically kind of, is holding the sword then as by tricks. And he becomes Captain Avalon, sworn in defense to the Braddock line and his brother King Jamie. So he is now Captain Avalon, and the Captain Britain Corps is stunned by this. Again, I'm not sure why the nature of this conflict is strange. Anyway, by pulling the sword, everything kind of halts, and Saturnyne shows up and says, all right, well, you're now the Captain Britain. You're going to be my, take the fraudulent captains back to the jail cell. We're going to kill them off. And she also says, look, you too, Betsy, you've been a royal pain in the ass, and I'll be taking your amulet of right. But instead of handing it over, Betsy destroys it. And kind of without the amulet, you have to rely on a reject. So Saturnyne is not amused by this and says, you're all going to go to your room and you're going to die. And Brian, you're coming to my room. And so they head off to they have to presumably have sex, I guess. And Betsy is in a prison cell, and she is rescued by her brother Jamie, who encourages her to take a leap of faith. They fly off on a griffin, and meanwhile, off in Saturnyne's room, she's doing a little bit of warm up time with old Brian, and so she crafts a new sword from the basically called the Starlight Sword. And this is forged to arm Captain Britain in the absence of Merlin Roma and their tester objects. It's made from some of the Starlight Citadel. And when the holder of the blade basically is Saturnyne's knight, Otherworld's protector, and the defender of the Omniverse. So it's an even cooler sword. We've got so many swords going on. So Brian goes on and basically says, give me that sword, baby. And she drops it and then proceeds to kind of seduce her on the bed. And then good news, because she dropped the sword on the floor, that allows Jamie and Betsy to kind of just sneak in and grab the sword, which they do. And when Betsy grabs the Starlight Sword, she transforms back into Captain Britain. And it turned out to be a trick, a clever little trick that Brian was pulling. And he serves, the Braddocks because he is Captain Avalon. And I was just fooling you with feeling you up. And so, bested, Saturnyne's like, well, you got the best of me. So we'll have another round. See you later. And that leads Captain Avalon and Betsy to go through the Krakoa gate, and then that's what ties us into Ten of Swords. They take the 6th and 7th spot on the little runic area as two more members of the X-Men, the Krakoa side of things. But in the last line, it says she meaning Betsy, will lose more than she planned for. Which is the ominous finish to the issue. So that's how we end. Next issue is X-Men. So presumably we're going to find the last 3 spots filled so we can get to Stasis, #1, which is kind of our midpoint of this series. So thoughts. So if you have been enjoying Excalibur up to this point, then you're most likely going to be quite happy because this is really feeling more like a continuation of that run as opposed to something that's interrupted for a big crossover event. Definitely goes more into the relationship between Betsy and Brian and kind of cleans more of that up. Betsy is written just really strange here. And how she's been written for Excalibur has been a little off the entire time, but this issue is kind of the epicenter for me of the last 13 or so. They're trying to write her with frustration, but it's coming across like she's a lunatic a little bit. So okay, or maybe it was all just a trick on top of a trick. Who knows? I'm not super clear what Saturnines' role in all this is. That's becoming more muddled. Like she's kind of ruling over this contest, but then she's playing side games with the swords and Captain Britain and all the rest. And it's kind of weird that Captain Avalon is one of the members of this tournament, but okay, he's not a mutant, but that's fine. Sure. No, it's a tough issue because it is very much like Excalibur. If you're reading this all like in one omnibus, then you're going to hit this issue and it's going to be like, what the F is going on? And especially coming from Cable, the last issue, it's kind of two issues in a row that feel only vaguely connected to this whole thing. This series has got a lot of things going on, and I know some people really love it, but it hasn't hit its moment yet where it feels cohesive. It still feels very jumbled. And given that a lot of the X office is talking about their cohesion, that's a bit of an odd statement to make. Anyway, what did you think of this issue? Did you like it? Do you enjoy it? Are you loving Excalibur? If you do love Excalibur, can you kind of squint a little bit and think about this for somebody who's coming into this for the first time? Maybe you can help out too. How would somebody coming into this wrap their heads around this issue? Let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, hey, like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications. But most importantly, thanks for listening.